Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, is some of the most retarded, brainless, worthless piece of utter excuse of a movie crap I have ever seen. The movie makes no attempt to be a decent superhero movie, or even a movie at all. It was made for no other reason than to throw together a so-called Superman movie and throw it out to theaters and just grab all the money that it takes in, robbing us innocent people of our hard-earned money by tricking us into seeing this pathetic excuse of a movie. This poo-poo movie should have been illegal to make, because that's exactly what it did. It robbed people's money, and it stole from us. The people that made this movie are thieves. And then they have the nerve to turn right around and threaten us with legal action with their copyright material propaganda you see before the main menu. There are so many things wrong with this retarded movie, and the crap factor is so high, I don't even know where to start. So I am going to do what I always do when in doubt, start from the very beginning. Now I will warn you, there are going to be spoilers in this review, but how many of you really care about spoilers? I didn't think so, but just in case anyone out there for some reason does care, you have been warned. Ready? Okay then, let's go. So the movie starts out with some astronauts in space, working on some sort of space station thingy, and suddenly something happens and one of the astronauts begins to float out into deep space, completely helpless. But who should just so happen to be in space at the time that all of this is taking place? It is, no, not a bird, you idiot. Birds will die in space. No, it isn't a plane either. Don't you know that jet engines cannot go to space, which is the reason why we have rockets, which is the whole reason why we have this stupid scene anyway. Get your facts right. Getting back on track, the person who comes to save the day is, yes, you guessed it, Superman, who dramatically flies in to save the day, with some of the most utterly pathetic, most retarded, cheapest green screen of all time. Watching Superman appear on screen like that was one of the most painstakingly bad moments of this entire movie. So Superman just grabs the astronaut and puts him back into the spaceship, and everything is normal again. Then Superman closes the door of the ship, and it literally sounds like a refrigerator door closing. Is that the best they could do? I can understand that the spaceship is actually a movie set, but you couldn't even find some sort of sound effect of an actual rocket ship door closing, and you just had to stick with the sound of a styrofoam door closing. Or maybe it was plastic, I don't know, nor do I really care. Did they really feel the need to save the time and money of a single sound effect? Now I know some of you are thinking, but it is only a sound effect. Your point exactly. Why should you freak out over a single sound effect? Well, let me tell you, this is setting the stage for what is to come. Now let's reflect for a moment on this sequence. An astronaut becomes in danger, and Superman just so happens to be there at this time, so he flies in and saves him, and that's it. As you watch the rest of the movie, you realize that this sequence is literally completely pointless, as it does not tie in with the movie's plot in the least bit, that is, assuming you can even say this movie has a plot. Why did we have to watch a completely useless scene of Superman this astronaut? If you have seen the previous 3 movies, you should know that Superman saves people, so there is no reason why we should be reminded of this. In fact, you don't even need to see the first 3 movies to get this fact. Superman saves people. Pretty much anyone who knows anything about Superman, or that he even exists, should know this. Okay, let's move on, before my system shuts down on myself. I say it that way, because I am a computer voice, don't forget. Okay, moving on. So the next sequence we get is, I want you to take a guess. You got it? Okay, I'll tell you, you're not going to believe this. We next have yet another completely pointless sequence of Superman saving a person. Yes, you heard me right, now we've got 2 of them. This time a driver of a subway. Well, I don't even know what he does. He falls asleep or something like that, at the cab. Somehow Superman indicates this and quickly flies down the line to stop the subway. Then of course the paramedics arrive and Superman reminds them that the man is actually okay, he just needs a bit of rest, I guess. That's not actually what Superman said word for word, but that is the gist of it. Then here is when things get really stinkish. Superman turns around and tells everyone, you know what, I don't even need to say it myself, I will let you guys hear it for yourselves. Roll it.
Gentlemen, one moment. I'd like all the people back there to know that our subway system is still the safest and most reliable means of public transportation. Thank you.
What the crap? Was that really necessary? Why did Superman have to remind everyone of this? Why would a man falling asleep at the cab make the subway system dangerous in any way? Were the writers of this movie worried that the scene was going to cause some sort of mass boycott of the subway system? Like what on earth were these idiots thinking? I don't know. So then, after Superman says these words, he flies off down the tunnel, with some even more eye-inducing green screen. Why is the green screen in this movie so bad? Now I get it. It is 1987, and I do not expect 2015 special effects in this movie, but even by 1987 standards, this is absolutely unacceptable. For a good comparison, let's look at the original Star Wars. Yes, I say original, not that CGI-stained crap version that came out later. Now Star Wars was released a decade before this movie, and just look at how amazing it is, even for its time. Great special effects, in fact special effects that practically revolutionized filmmaking forever. And this was back before green screen was invented. Back then, all they had to rely on was practical sets as well as practical effects, such as actual explosions, models, and very careful camera movements to capture the scene in the most realistic way possible. And you know why it's so good? It's because the filmmakers actually put effort into it, hard work and effort. And that's why it is one of the most amazing movies even to this very day, and explains why this year, 2015, is one of the most anticipated film years in history. But anyway, this is a good example of great filmmaking at its finest. But this dog poop movie, in the other hand, is completely different from that. It is one of the biggest piece of vile and realistic nonsensical trash in the face of the earth. But allow the rest of this review to speak those words for itself. Moving on. So the next sequence we get is, at last, a sequence that actually tells us, what on earth is going on in this movie. So we are introduced to the main villain of this movie, who is, yes, you guessed it, Lex Luthor. That's right, the villain of this movie is none other than Lex Luthor himself. Yes, I can never seem to pronounce his name right, I apologize for that. How can you mess up a movie that badly, having Superman and literally his greatest enemy of all time? Well, the people in charge of this crap did just that, and it is quite the accomplishment. Not a good accomplishment, but an accomplishment nonetheless. So Lex Luthor is working in a quarry with about 12 other prisons chopping up rocks, all the while, only 2 cops are standing guard. Suddenly, Lex's son Lenny shows up in his fancy-looking convertible, pulls over, and then you're not even going to believe this, manages to trick the police officers into getting into the car, to see how great it is. Then with the flip of a button, Lenny traps the officers in the car, by pressing a button in his remote control, which closes the doors, rolls up the windows, and then lowers the roof, all taking place of the course of about 30 seconds, which is plenty of time for the officers to escape. But no, the retarded officers just sit there and exclaim, "Oh my god, we are getting trapped," all while doing nothing but just sitting there and panicking. Then the car just drives off the cliff, in one of the worstly edited car crash sequences I had ever seen in my life. After the car hits the bottom, Lenny and Rex find their chance of escape and do so. Oh, and then of course, no more than 10 seconds later, we see the 2 cops climbing up the cliff, all covered in dust, having escaped from the mangled car mess unharmed. I don't understand why the writers were so objective of the idea of killing people off. Under natural circumstances, these cops should have died instantly, if not become seriously injured or even immobilized. But no, to reduce the violence and make the film more acceptable for really appropriate family viewing, we can't have anyone in this movie die. Everyone's lives always end up happy in the end. This really ticks me off, and I can't stand it when movies do that. You do not have to show everyone escaping unharmed from their cars to make the film more enjoyable, knowing that everyone is alright and nobody is suffering. When villains do stuff that causes people to die, especially when done with intent, then it makes the villains more unlikable, as they should be, and seem more dangerous, posing a bigger threat to the hero and adding even more suspense to the movie. These are all of the things that make a superhero movie great. But because the stupid writers chose to let everyone live, we have none of this, and the result is nothing but pure 100% crap. And then from here, I am going to be honest, it is just a complete pile of illogical garbage that makes no sense whatsoever. It feels like there are multiple, at least 2, plots going on at the exact same time. So we have a plot line where the government sets up some sort of nuclear policy thing, and everyone is upset about it. So an annoying 7 or so year old child decides to ask Superman for help, and so he does it. Meanwhile, you have Lex Luthor working on some sort of secret weapon thing, actually to be more specific, an evil Superman clone called Nuclear Man. I can't believe that, Nuclear Man. There were a billion other names they could have used and that's the best they could come up with. This so-called Nuclear Man isn't even in the comics. He is not an actual Superman villain. He is just some generic stupid worthless clone thing that kills Superman. Because he's evil and that he was created to do evil things. Now technically, how Nuclear Man came into being does, in some very strange illogical sense, tie in with Superman's mission in getting rid of all the nuclear weapons in space, but because the 2 elements are so badly connected together, it feels like a big tangled mess up plot and story that is completely disgusting and you don't buy it all. So then, oh god, I don't even know what happens next, I am having trouble remembering. This movie is so tedious to watch it makes your brain go numb. Okay, I will try to explain the rest of this movie in the best way I can. So the next thing I remember is that Kent Clark is at someone's house, or someone is at his house. I honestly cannot remember, and there are people all around him that need to be saved by Superman. So to turn into his superhero identity, Superman, and then back into Kent Clark without anyone noticing, he keeps sneaking into different rooms to give him the ability to change into Superman without anyone seeing him. What is frustrating about this scene is that, if it was done right, and with time, and effort, it could have actually been a really cool scene. But the whole scene is just lackluster, boring, and illogical at times. For example, Kent Clark begins to make up some pretty bad excuses for having to excuse himself to a different room, so he can turn into Superman. But by far the dumbest part of the scene is when Superman is in this one building talking to someone and needs to turn into Superman. So he pretends that he accidentally clings onto a luggage cart and is being pushed away. Yes, you heard me right. You did not just mishear me and think I said something far more retarded, nor are your expectations of me tearing into this piece of utter garbage so high that your brain is just hearing this. I actually said that. He pretended to cling onto the front of a moving luggage cart that someone is pushing away to the lobby. As hard as it is to pick a worst scene from this undeniably intolerable piece of garbage, if I had to choose one scene from this movie to call the worst, I might say, this is it. Another pretty terrible moment in this scene is when Kent Clark gets into the driver's seat of someone's car, who apparently forgot to lock it, and then gets out of the passenger side as Superman. These two elements were done in one take, so it is obviously a stunt double getting out of the car as Superman. Not to mention, he is doing it in a parking lot, in public. How nobody notices this take place I have no idea. Later on, we have a scene where Kent Clark sees some sort of hologram video of Lex Luthor, who says something along the lines of "Hello Clark, don't worry with my special invention, the personal holographic TV," or some stupid device like that given to us as a gift from the magical plot fairy, only you can hear me. That's right, none of these other people in public can see or hear me right now. Say, you see, that building over there? I am going to blow up 20 stories of that building. See you. While that's not exactly what he says word for word, it is something along those lines. Now as it turns out, Superman gets to the building to find that Lex Luthor actually isn't going to blow the building up after all, and the building he lied about blowing 20 stories up in is actually the building that Lex Luthor was broadcasting from. He wanted Superman to go there, so that Lex Luthor could summon Nuclear Man to fight Superman. From here, it escalates into a really boring, cheap, and utterly disgustingly bad climax, where Superman fights off Nuclear Man. I really don't have to explain anything else in greater detail. Superman wins, and Nuclear Man is defeated, and Lex Luthor and his son Lenny are arrested. I guess the only thing I can mention from that final battle sequence is the bus that somehow manages to rotate around in circles while positioned perpendicular with the ground. Yeah, that doesn't make the least bit of sense to me either. Oh yeah, and I should also mention the body count of the final battle, a grand total of 0. That's right, nobody died in the entire final battle. In fact, nobody died throughout the entire movie, and of course everyone lived happily ever after. Screw this movie. It is the biggest insult to Superman I have ever seen in my life. It is by far one of the worst movies ever made. In fact, it has no right to even identify itself as a movie. It has a 12% in Rotten Tomatoes, which is 112% too high. Now I will admit, just as Batman and Robin is, this movie is fun to put on and get a really good laugh out of, and it is easy as crap to nitpick. But from a Superman fan standpoint, this movie should be avoided at all costs. Let's sum it all up. So after 10 minutes of completely boring crappy lazy footage of Superman saving people, we get to the crappy convoluted weak plot about Lex Luthor who creates a stupid mentally retarded nuclear clone to take over the world, or at least kill Superman. How could they screw this movie up so badly, by having the greatest Superman villain of all time fighting against Superman? This movie should have, could have, and would have been great, if they had gotten a decent writer, and better special effects. Combined, these two main issues made practically everything about this movie wrong. It is just baffling. Stay away from this movie at all costs, unless you have no desire to take it seriously, and watch it for no other reason to laugh at it and observe its sheer stupidity and nonsense. Well then, that is about all I have to say about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Tune in again next time, when I, Microsoft Sam, serve you up again with another great movie review right here on YouTube. Until then, this is Microsoft Sam of Windows 2000 and XP signing off. Good night folks.